Take two.
Hey, we're heating it up.
On Dark Matter Radio.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free. You're listening to Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Dark Matter.
That's the only way my poor little binky brain could handle it.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, let's go. That new intro reminds me, you know, like I'm in Ibiza dancing in 8 feet of soap suds. You know how they do it there. Welcome, everybody. It's Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, it's Friday, May 16th, 2014. Got the studio dark, got the dance music cranking. Thank you, Space Boy. I do love it. Just posted right now on Twitter right now. All right, for KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in roasting, baking, Burbank, California. Our thoughts go out to everybody down there in San Diego. Carlsbad, Oceanside, Camp Pendleton, San Marcos. Be safe. It's out of control. A little early this year, too. Big salute to the proud men and women in uniform all around the world, fighting the good fight for us. Without them, there is no me. There is no you. There is no us. And you couldn't hear me right now. And I need you to think about that. Also, all those firefighters down there, San Diego, I cannot imagine doing your job. Thank you. All right. Today, let's get it cracking. Let's go. Today, actor Danny Trejo is 70 years old. Known for all of his Robert Rodriguez films, but just to let you know how much of a total badass he really is, and it's not fake. He was the prison boxing champion while he served 11 years for robbery. That's what I'm talking about. You see Danny Trejo on the screen, Machete, all those movies, Dusk Till Dawn. He's the real deal. I met Danny, oddly enough. I met him about, I guess it's been about 10 years, and just became buds, and he was just a really cool guy, and lives here in the Valley, lives not too far from the studio here, and just a really cool guy. He's exactly who you think he is, except for that Spy Kid stuff. I don't know about that. And also today, Billy Cobham, the drumming great, played with Miles Davis, 70 years old. And, okay, I'm going to move on. Today is an anniversary. It's a sad day for us here. But today is May 16th. And today is the day that the world lost one of its greatest singers and frontmen, Ronnie James Dio, to stomach cancer. He was 67 years old. Now, Ronnie was a neighbor of mine in Sherman Oaks, and I've known him for many, 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 many years. And his whole organization, everybody, his band, Craig Goldie, Jimmy Bain, Doug Aldrich, all of those guys, it was a family. It was cool. And, it was just we lost a great one on May 16th. Probably one of the best. And before he passed away, people would come up to me all the time and they would say, Jimmy, who's the greatest singer? Who's your favorite? Who's the best? Who's the best? I would go, man, Ronnie Dio. Well, what about Robert Plant? What about the Ronnie Dio? And I know I'm speaking for everybody out there. We all know how great that guy was and continues to be. And so today's the day, May 16th. And if you go over to my Facebook page, I've had a picture up of Ronnie and I together in the studio that was taken years ago, but and I started using that the day that he passed away, and I've had it as my Facebook profile picture for a long time. And he was just a great guy. He could also sing, and that's what made him different. And for everybody out there, everybody in the music industry just loved him. He was just a great guy. Anyway, so sad day, but let's move on. Let's keep it up. Show must go on. Ronnie would say that right now. Jimmy, quit talking about me. Do your show. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Twitter is @JChurchRadio. I'm glancing over now at my Twitter box, and it's starting to take off. Here we go. So Twitter's @JChurchRadio. And don't forget to hashtag DMRadioNet. DMRadioNet. Hashtag DMRadioNet. Get you in that tweet chat room. And, man, it was on fire last night. Woo. Couldn't keep up with it. And speaking of last night and Dan Fogler. Oh, man. Yeah, he dropped a few F-bombs. And I'm not going to apologize for it. It's just the way that he talks. And you're not going to be censored on this show. Just be yourself. And if that's you, that's you. That's it. But the conversation was great. I was talking today to a friend of mine that owns a network on the East Coast. And he goes, Jimmy, man, I was listening to the show last night. And I said, yeah? And he goes, and the guy you were talking to about the dark side of the moon, man, that was great stuff. And then I told him who it was. Oh, okay. But that was somebody that didn't know Dan and was just listening to the show. And I thought that was really cool. And that was some pretty cool feedback. And so there you go. Anyway. All right, follow, like, and subscribe. You know what to do. You're over there at Dark Matter Radio right now. You're on the website. Just scroll up and click on everything. Follow, like, subscribe. You know what to do. Tonight, open lines, probably after Brad. We're tying up some other phone lines, doing some other stuff. But the phone number is 323-825-5045. You can email throughout the show. You know what to do there. Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. You got any questions for Brad? There's already, like there is every night, there's a few lined up for Brad. You got to get it through. The producer's here. I don't see the emails first. You need to understand that. There's a delay. Everything gets filtered. You can just go over to the contacts page at the website, jimmychurchradio.com. Just go over there, go to the contacts page, and you can email direct through there, where we use non-NSA specially encrypted servers. All right. Now, let's get to some email before we get to Brad, get to some news. Thanks for all of the energy and your compatriots are putting into Fade to Black and making it the premier paranormal show anywhere. It's another interesting week, and the research aspect of your work adds a great extra to all of the intriguing guests you present. That structure off of Point Magoo is fascinating, to say the least, which is why I wanted to read this email, because I never said Point Magoo. But somebody, and that's why I love the listeners here and the audience. It's like a family. You guys are actually going and checking this out. I never said Point Magoo, but Point Magoo is right there where this entrance is that we have found off of Malibu. And that's why I had to read this email. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Structures all over the world and other worlds hint at many fantastic adventures, but they have up to now just seemed to be out of reach of our ultimate understanding. Thus, conventional science can ignore those of us who want to know more. Best of luck on exposing the nature of the Point Magoo anomaly. I kind of like Point Magoo, by the way. Might have to run with that. This could be big. And that was from Ben Miller. Ben, thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. We knew that eventually, we wanted to do some investigating. And we've had lots and lots of emails with sightings and abductions and paranormal and ghosts. But, I can't go investigate a lot of that stuff. But if the opportunity presents itself, like it does right here with this Malibu sighting, Point Magoo, it's a whole nother world. It's a brave new world. Talked to so many people about this today, and it's pretty cool. So we got a little bit of the press out today, and we're going to work on it over the weekend. But yes, we're going to hit this. Okay, next. This came in from Lou. This is one of the best emails I have received in months. One sentence. It says, "How much will you be putting in for our collective bid for the Clippers?" Lou, you went right there, didn't you? Like a dagger in the heart. After them falling out of the playoffs like that, I could see them going a little bit cheaper than what we thought. Today, this isn't a sports show anymore, but here in L.A., that's all everybody's talking about is Sterling and the Clippers. And Sterling ain't he's not giving up anything. He's not going down without a fight. He's brought in his attorneys, and he's about to get really, really ugly with it. Now, before I get to the news, we posted yesterday over at jimmychurchradio.com. Now, we have some new listeners that may not have listened to the show yesterday. We had thousands of people literally today go through the website and look at the pictures of Malibu that we posted yesterday. We posted up 9. So if you go over, we're going to be talking about this a little bit tonight with Brad when he comes on. I want everybody to be familiar with what we are talking about and what this, the significance of it all. So you know where it's at, Church Rant. If you're new to the program or you didn't listen last night, go over to jimmychurchradio.com, scroll down. This is the breaking story that we have been doing all week on the air. We broke this on Tuesday. The discovery was made on Monday. Now, the 9 photographs here start south, looking north up the California coast. And so the top left picture, which is picture number 1, that is south, looking north. Malibu is to your right. Point Magoo, Port Hueneme, Doom, all of that is to your left or to your right, and that is Pacific Coast Highway. Then as you go through the pictures, you end up down at the bottom in the lower right-hand corner, north, looking south, back over where picture number 1 starts at. So it's a full panoramic click. Boom, 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 ending up. So it starts out south-north, ends up north-south. And that's what you are looking at. Just remember the size of this structure and where it is off of the California coast. And so tonight during the show, and you hear us talking about this and referencing it, this is what we're referencing. The article above this at the top of jimmychurchradio.com says right there, massive deep underwater base discovered off of Malibu. There are the specs. There is the information. There are the guys that have been working on this. Everybody is listed here. The numbers are there, and its location is there. I will at some point, it's already on Facebook and it's on Twitter, the actual coordinates of where this is at. But it is so big and so large, if you go to Google and you go up and look at the Malibu coast, you can see it through the water yourself. You won't be able to see these pictures because we have some special software that allows us to look undersea. Okay, but you can look at it from above. But that's what that is. It is a big deal. Sent this over to a couple of researcher buddies of mine today and spoke to them, calling me back. What the heck? Are you kidding? Really? And that is the reaction that we have gotten from some pretty substantial people out there. And we'll be bringing everybody on the record over the next couple of weeks to speak about this. I want everybody's input. And anybody listening to the show right now, if you can hear me right now, I need you to do a little research too. Be a piece of this breaking action. In your lifetime, something like this is actually taking off. It's like when Area 51 happened. That's how I feel. Is it that big? It could be. It really could. It's absolutely nuts. All right, so that's that. We got email out of the way. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to do the news, a couple of headlines, a couple of freaky things, actually. We'll get to that later on. Brad Olsen after the break. Next week, Jim Mars, by the way. And Steve Allen, Stevensville Lights. He'll be Thursday. Friday, surprise guest. Should be Michael Tellinger, but he's in South Africa right now doing some investigating. So we might have to move him over to next week. Week after. I'll be back after this. Don't touch that mouse. This is the Friday edition, Fade to Black. I'll be back right after this. Bespoke Radio.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Dark Matter Radio Network. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444, or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. So Doug Aldrich did a press release today. He's left Whitesnake. Oh, yeah. Caught it right before the show. He left Whitesnake after 11 years. He's moving on. More on that next week after I talk to him this weekend. Okay, some of the tweets that have just come in. Eugene says, still would like to hear the beach erosion angle explained. I still think it's a deep underwater base, but maybe ancient. I agree. Totally agree. Don't know. Leslie says, Sterling is like an old starving fighting a bear for a bone. Yes, he is. Lucian, Jimmy, the best part of your show is the questions and comments your readers submit. That's why I read that, Lou. Okay. All right. Over at CNN.com, I always check in right before the show. You never know what could be breaking or what not. But there was something curious. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but they did it again. Right now on CNN, these are the trending headlines. Aaron Hernandez, who cares? California wildfires, big news, absolutely. Jay-Z, Donald Sterling, measles, and the Russian rocket. So then I went down the headlines, all the way down the side of the page. No 370, not a peep. So then I go down to the bottom of the page, and I'm looking in U.S., I'm looking in world, I'm looking in technology, science, justice, whatever. Not one word on 370, at least on their homepage. If there's something deeper in the website, I don't care. And that means the man won. And just listen to me when I say this. News outlets like that, and I don't care who you pick, only use what they are given. That's it. There's nothing creative. There's nobody busting their butt out there for a story. Doesn't happen that way anymore. It's just all fed. So I guess the man got what he wanted, because there is no mention of it anywhere. Little bit of news over the last couple of days on it that I found surprising, which is the Malaysians say now that they don't have the satellite data, they don't know who's got it. Maybe it's the United States, maybe it's China. United States says no, the Malaysians have it. No, maybe China, maybe it's Australia. We don't know. It's amazing. Amazing. And all that means is next week, I'm going to work hard. I will find something. Today, the Pentagon says they've got battle plans for zombies. I'm not making this up. In an unclassified document entitled CONOP 8888, officials from the U.S. Strategic Command used the specter of a planet-wide attack by zombies and the Walking Dead as a training template for how to plan for real-life, large-scale operations, emergencies, and catastrophes. The Pentagon said today that there is a reasonable explanation. The document is, this is a quote from the Pentagon, and I'm quoting here. The document is identified as a training tool used in an in-house training exercise where students learn about the basic concepts of military plans and order development through a fictional training scenario, said Navy Captain Pamela Coons. This document is not a strategic command plan. Listen to this. A wide variety of different zombies, each brandishing their own lethal threats, are possible to confront and should be planned for, end quote. And I'm quoting again, zombie life forms created from the occult experimentation in what otherwise be referred to as an evil magic, to vegetarian zombies that pose no threat to humans due to their exclusive consumption of vegetation, to zombie life forms created after an organism is infected with a high dose of radiation, are among the invaders the document outlines. End quote from the Pentagon. Every phase of the operation, from conducting general zombie awareness training and recalling all military personnel to their duty stations, to deploying reconnaissance teams to ascertain the general safety of the environment, to restoring civil authority after a zombie threat has been neutralized and discussed. The rules of engagement with zombies are clearly spelled out. And I'm quoting again. The only assumed way to effectively, this is straight from the document, the only assumed way to effectively cause casualties to the zombie ranks by tactical force is the concentration of all firepower to the head, specifically the brain. It goes on to say the only way to ensure a zombie is dead is to burn the zombie corpse. And that is your tax dollars working hard. Unbelievable. Morgan Spurlock. Got an email about this today. I saw the commercials for this throughout the week, and then I saw the interview earlier today. Then I got an email. Then I got another email. I thought, okay, I'm going to talk about this because I like Morgan. And, Morgan Spurlock, he was that guy that did the 30-day McDonald's diet. I forget what it was called, the documentary. But that's Morgan. Cool guy. He's going to do a show with MUFON. And he is going through their training program on how to investigate a UFO sighting. He's going to graduate. He's going to get his Bobcat pin, and he's going to head out with MUFON and go and investigate a couple of sightings. Now, what CNN did is they went through and looked at everything to make sure that Morgan was going to go out on some really cool investigations. Morgan is, he's going to take this serious, and I can't wait. There are a couple of things that come to mind, though, with this. I don't know what's up with MUFON this last 6 months or a year, but they're really trying to change their public image. And if you remember the interview that we did with Richard Dolan a few months ago, Dolan had a lot of criticism about MUFON. And Steve Murillo's been on here. He's been critical, former director of MUFON. And I think they're trying to change the public perception of how they deal with things. But MUFON now, they've somehow got this show with Spurlock, and they've got their new Hangar 1 show on cable right now. With it seems to be the Richard Dolan special, and it's excellent, by the way. It's not a rehash of the old stuff. They've really put a lot of effort into Hangar 1. I dig it. I've watched the first 5 or 6 episodes. I think that's what they've aired so far. I've seen them all. They're good. Richard is always compelling. He's great, but it just seems like MUFON has got a PR agency in their employ right now, and they're working really hard at this. So Spurlock went on to say, and this is a quote from Spurlock. He says, "Sure, we could have gone for the goofball comedy, but there's a larger conversation to be had here, and we went for those people. As far as I'm concerned, those who believe that we are the only life form existing in the universe are the ones that are crazy. The possibility that we are alone is slim and improbable. It's very easy to turn that discussion into a kook fest. Those are people who dominate the airwaves. But there are some really credible people who seek the truth, and we got to go out and find them," end quote. So that's what CNN is doing with MUFON. It's going to be a serious presentation. I applaud it. And Morgan is just the guy to go out there and take it serious. And so there you go. Looks like MUFON and CNN are in bed together, and it's a good thing. Did you see the video of the Russian space rocket breaking apart after launch? I watched the video today, and pretty crazy video. So it takes off, and we need to get that link up. Producers, listen to me. Get the link up to the Russian rocket that blew up yesterday. But the rocket takes off. I don't know. It's a couple of minutes in. The whole video's there. And you can see it no longer is going straight up. It is angling for a long time. And it now, as soon as it starts to go sideways, it self-destructs. There's a self-destruct circuitry in it. And so once it goes off path, boom, they blow it up. Pretty crazy. But that's not the crazy part. This is like the 4th time in the last few years that they do about 30 launches a year, the Russians. And 2 this year have gone bad. And I'm telling you what, if I'm a cosmonaut and they want to put me up on one of those, And if I've got a $1 billion communication satellite, I'm looking for another way to get it up there now. I'm not doing this. In July this year, One blew up right after liftoff in Kazakhstan, 2010. It's the Proton M rocket, by the way, carrying 3 satellites, crashed in the Pacific Ocean. Just absolutely nuts. And they want to hold back the rocket engines from us. Well, you know what? I think we're cool. San Diego is on fire, and I want everybody down there to be safe. And if you can hear me, if you're goofing around and listening to this show instead of looking out the window, just listen to me. If anybody says pack up and go, you pack up and go. Grab your photographs, get your get-to-go bag, have a couple of backpacks ready, because if they say go, go. It turns out today that they've arrested somebody today for arson, and it kills me to hear this. They arrested Alberto Serrato for arson. A bunch of citizens down there saw him stoking a fire. Well, they arrested him. I don't know if he did all of the starts, but they all started at the same time. And that, to me, is that's about as serious of a crime. It only carries 7 years in prison. And I find that to be nuts. It should be life. Isn't it life? I think it's life. If somebody dies in the fire, isn't that a whole nother situation? I think it is. I'm not too sure. All right. With that, let's take a break. When I come back, Brad Olsen will be here. Fade to black. Next week, like I said, next week is Jim Mars. Michael Tellinger's still on the books. He's just somewhere in South Africa. We just want to make sure we can get him set up. If we can't, it'll be somebody else. Steve Allen on Thursday. When I come back, Brad Olsen. Stay with us, everybody.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? My name's Brian Taylor, Ninja Badass Extraordinaire, and this is JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KJCR in your face. JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Jimmy.
Oh, yeah. I hear you, Brad. Don't go anywhere. Fade to Black, the Friday edition. Now do follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. Get involved. Get involved. I read it all. I do. Email Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Got emails coming in. And that's it. Let's go. Let's get it cracking. I'm ready. Brad Olsen's passion for writing goes far beyond his book publishing business or the online content he produces. His books have reached a wide audience across the country and have won numerous awards. His work has been reviewed in top publications, and he continues to lecture nationwide on various subjects. He has appeared on dozens of television and nationally syndicated radio shows over the course of 2 decades. Olsen announced the release of Esoteric series in 2013 with the release of 2 books in 2 years. Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, was released to many favorable reviews in January 2013 through CCC Publishing in paperback and all ebook formats. The second installment of the series, Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses, was released in March 2014. Brad was interviewed on the hit History Channel series Ancient Aliens for 2 episodes in Season 6, which aired in late 2013. His commentaries have appeared on Coast to Coast, National Public Radio, CNN, the X-Zone, Buzzsaw, and the Travel Channel. I would like to welcome to the program Mr. Brad Olsen. Brad, welcome to Fade to Black.
Thank you, Jimmy, and can add Fade to Black to that list now.
It's an honor, man. You have no idea. It is an honor. So, Brad, really quick, a couple of things, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I think you were getting ready to say something, but you're up there in San Francisco. You guys really don't have fires up there, do you?
Not actually in San Francisco.
Yeah.
You have some in the Santa Cruz Mountains. There's one right now today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really?
And we also had that big one in Oakland back in the early 1990s.
Yeah, that was crazy, and they weren't prepared for that Oakland fire. That went from one house to how many burned down? It was in the thousands, wasn't it? It was crazy. All of Oakland burned. That whole hill went down.
The whole hillside, yeah, not down in the flat part of Oakland, but yeah, you can still see the scar there. There's very few large trees there anymore on that whole hillside when you pass through the Caldecott Tunnel.
Yeah, you can still see it. Absolutely right. And I remember the last time that I was up there, somebody pointed that out to me because I had kind of said, what is going on up there? And they said, oh, that's where the fire was. Oh, really? And that was about 10 years ago. And yeah, I was just shocked that most of it's been rebuilt, but I just don't think they were expecting it, and that's why, they just weren't prepared. Who would have thought that Oakland would burn like that, and as quick as it did too?
Yeah, and my heart goes out to all those people in San Diego right now. That's a scary fire down there.
Yeah, I remember the last time, it seemed like it was about 4 or 5 years ago, but they had that other fire down there in San Diego that went through the flatlands, and it was hundreds of thousands of acres then, and and here you are a couple of years later, dealing with it again, and it turns out to be arson. It's just absolutely nuts. Okay, anyway, you're absolutely right. Our hearts are out to them. And okay, now Brad, we can talk about anything, and one of the reasons why, the reasons are many, but one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show, as bad as I did, is you are, even though you've been doing this for a long time, you are a fresher face. You probably look at yourself as one of the young guys, as one of the new guys, the new guy in town kind of thing. But, you have a fresh attitude and a fresh look at so many different subjects, and that's what I respect and I appreciate, and I think that everybody tonight listening, if they haven't heard you speak before, then they're going to be very impressed, because it's not the status quo, tried and true take and view on things.
Well, I hope to impress.
I'm not setting.
I hope you're right.
Yeah. And I don't mean it like, okay, now what are you going to do, young man? But it's just
a lot of pressure.
Well, it's when you have on, and I'm not taking away from any guest that has been on the show previously, but a lot of times it's hard to get those guys to come out of the box, because they're so used to the same 20 questions from the other network, from the other show, and the same 20 questions from people, that they just go into, when I say people, I mean TV shows and producers and stuff. It's it becomes very robotic, and it's hard to get them out of the box. But you don't come from that box, and that's why I'm excited about having you on. How did you? Let's back up and let's set the table for everybody out there. This will be the one and only softball question of the night, which is, what happened? Something happened, and you made a right turn somewhere in your life, and you dived into this. And so take me there. What happened?
Well, you got that right. The Esoteric series is my 8th and 9th published book. I started out as a travel writer and still have quite a few successful books out there. When you mentioned in my setup about being on the Travel Channel and a few of those others, that was working in the context of my Sacred Places series of books, which still does very well. In fact, I'm on the H2 show called America Unearthed. We're filming this summer. So those books still are a very big part of my life, and this is actually how I got into it, was by being an English teacher in Japan in the early 1990s. I financed my own 3-year trip around the world, and this is what led me into many of these subjects, first on travel, but also on esoteric subjects, such as visiting the Great Pyramid or Angkor Wat in Cambodia. I mean, going to these incredible sites and then leaving there with more wonder and mystery and questions that I had as far as how these monuments were built. And indeed, they are sacred places, but they're also these esoteric references that I use for building a case that there had been antediluvian civilization on this planet long, long ago that really isn't recognized in academic circles, but those like yours and others do pick up on this stuff, and I'm really grateful that you guys are interested in these subjects, because they blew me away when I saw them for myself.
When you were at okay, anyway, I'm just reading a text from the network. Getting a little dropout on your feed, but let's just let Skype catch up to it, and we should be fine. But anyway, when I've never been to Angkor Wat, out of all of the sites like that around the world, Angkor Wat is the one that kind of gets ignored, and I don't know why. But what was the sense of wonder when you got there? And it's certainly impressive. But and why do you think it's not discussed, right up there with the pyramids or the Mayan temples, sites in Israel? Why isn't Angkor Wat in that discussion as well?
Well, it certainly should be. It is one of the greatest archaeological sites on the planet. And it's very extensive. It's not just one temple complex. It is literally hundreds of temples over hundreds of acres that extend up to the highlands of Cambodia. Phnom Kulen is this mountain, and there's carvings of Shiva in the stream. What's so fascinating about Angkor Wat is that you have this blending of Hinduism and Buddhism with a real heavy dose of king worship as well. And this site itself is just on such a monumental scale, rarely seen at other sites like this around the world. Only a few come to mind on this scale, such as Pagan in Burma or Myanmar, and in the temple complex of Giza. Beyond the three main pyramids, you also have the Sphinx and some lesser pyramids. And then at the time I visited, my girlfriend and I took horses down to Saqqara and saw many pyramids along the way. Nothing is as dramatic as the Great Pyramid itself, and we can talk more about that. But you brought up Angkor Wat, and what I found so great about Angkor Wat is that you could just freely walk through these temples, and some of them they have allowed the jungle to remain entrenched in the monuments. So you see these great big banyan trees wrapping their roots around the monuments. I mean, you really feel like Indiana Jones when you explore some of these sites.
You know what? This is what I want to do, Brad. I think I want to reset either your Skype connection or we can go hardline. And I think we should do that because we're going to talk for the next 2.5 hours. And I want to have the best connection possible for everybody, if you don't mind. So,
not a problem.
Yeah, it is dropping out. So look, let's go ahead and let's take a break. And I'm going to let's go hardline and get ready with your landline. Okay, so with that,
you got it.
Okay, I'm going to run the end music, Keith. So there you go. All right, so just be ready. Here we go. All right, Brad. All right, everybody, just stay with us. I'm going to reset this. I need the best for everybody. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us. All right, you heard that. I didn't mute my mic. Welcome back, Fade to Black, on the Dark Matter Radio Network. All right, we got Brad. Brad on the line. Brad, are you there?
I'm here, Jimmy. Sorry about the confusion.
Listen to that. Sounds wonderful. Okay, all right. Now we can do this thing. We can do this thing just right. Okay, so back to Angkor Wat. When it's Angkor Wat. I'm sorry. I don't know why I say Angkor Wat. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. You comfortable? You got your coffee?
Ready to rock.
When you get to Angkor Wat, does it have the same impact majestically, through your, your inner being, the same impact that other megalithic sites kind of hit you with?
Well, the thing about Angkor, it's not really that old. It's only about 800-900 years old, and it's built out of sandstone, unlike some of the other megalithic sites, which are built out of stronger granite and limestone. So it is somewhat in a state of deterioration because sandstone's kind of a weaker stone to work in. It's easier to work in, but it wears out sooner than the other harder stones. So you do get this sense of the site itself in a state of deterioration, although it's not even that old as compared to, say, the Great Pyramids or other megalithic sites around the world. And it's not really megalithic per se. It's not huge, giant blocks as you would find in, say, Sacsayhuaman, Peru, or Baalbek, Lebanon, which are some of the largest hewn stones in the world. But it's impressive because of the massive scale it's on. And that's why I love it so much. Plus, the Cambodian people are so friendly. Buddhist countries are my favorite countries to visit because they're not hustling you all the time. They're just always have a smile on their face, and it's really easy to travel in those countries and very cheap.
I have a couple of quick questions I want to get out of the way that have been sent in, and so let's get to these really quick. And this first one is, here are two comments and a question for Brad Olsen. Brad, thanks for your book, Sacred Places, North America, which helped me plan several trips in my home state of Arizona. I'm adjusting my microphone, excuse me. I especially appreciated your website statements, quote, be sure to stay with the people who helped you achieve your success, and humanity is a collision course with itself. Is on a collision, yes it is. You said your hope is that wealthy people understand the suffering of less privileged people is the suffering of us all. How do you suggest we non-wealthy types can help make this happen?
Great questions, and thank you, listener, for mentioning Sacred Places North America and giving the props to that. Well, the answer to that is on the back of Modern Esoteric. And it's the headline caption that says, "The revolution is consciousness." And this is what I say in a lot of the radio shows that I'm doing to support the Esoteric series of books, is that it's really up to us. And it's not the kind of revolution that we're going to go out there in arms, because we're going to lose that battle. They're way better armed than we are. But it's more along the lines of Gandhi and John Lennon and Martin Luther King. In fact, John Lennon said they're going to try to flick you. The establishment's going to tug at your beard. They're going to do anything they can to provoke you to violence. But if you don't do that, instead if you make fun and be sarcastic and show them their errors through comedy and satire and sarcasm, they don't know how to deal with that. So that's the approach that I take. And I didn't quite get that quote word for word, but paraphrasing John Lennon, is that you can't go up against them with the same kind of power they're coming at you. You have to come at it at a different perspective. That's why I think the revolution is consciousness, and that is how we can make these big macro changes around the world. It's when we all start to wake up. And when we reach this point of the 100th monkey effect, you could see a cascading effect of consciousness that just people have the light bulb moment all around the world. And that's, if I were to make any contribution with these books, it would be towards those ends.
Have you seen anything like really crazy at any one of these sites? Anything that you can note that maybe wasn't necessarily put in your book, but and anything that you can comment on? Something goes on all the time. And what was your experience?
Sure. Well, I do mention it in the author's karma statement of Future Esoteric and I should, if I could, just define these two books. Modern Esoteric is book one in the series, and this is where the story begins. This is all the esoteric subjects that have been studied in the mystery schools and where we've been, and we can go into some of the chapters and that information later. Whereas Future Esoteric takes a very forward-looking stance in so much as all the ET-related phenomenon, the crop circles, the abductions, the underground bases, all the things related to this category looking into the future is in Future Esoteric. So in the author's karma statement, I'm just kind of defining my terms again, and I describe the one sighting that I've had, and it was up at Crater Lake with Mount Shasta visible far off in the distance, and Mount Shasta is one of the most primary sacred mountains around the world.
No question.
The heart chakra to some New Age people, but all the Native Americans in the whole Pacific Northwest, if they ever ventured down towards it, considered it Great White and many other names they had for it. So I was up there backpacking around in 1997 with a bunch of guys, and we had just watched the sunset up on Crater Lake, and we were going up to this renegade campsite we had at the highest point of Crater Lake. Right when we were turning up to go, we saw this bright light come across the sky, and it was no meteorite. It was perfectly symmetrical, like a laser beam, but it moved slowly. It took several seconds to span across the sky, and then the best way I can describe how it disappeared, it just broke off into like digital blips, like little squares, dot, 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 and then it went right into the depths of Crater Lake. Well, me and the other guys that witnessed it, we just fell to the ground laughing, and we just described it all. We saw it all exactly the same way. We started running up the hill to catch up with our other friends to see if they had seen it. And right at that moment, we saw the exact same thing happen over Mount Shasta, about 50 miles in the distance.
Incredible.
So the way I set this up in the book is, when I came back from this trip, I just wanted to find out what I saw. And there just was no available resource. And I thought, that's just crazy. Why is this sort of thing, including UFO sightings, resigned to this crazy woo-hoo type of category? I mean, I know what I saw. I have a photographic memory. I can remember it today like it happened yesterday. But there's no real resources. And, of course, back in 97, the Internet was just in its very infancy stage, so that wasn't quite the resource that it is today. So that's kind of what put me on this journey. And you asked me earlier what it was that made me make that left-hand turn. And this really was that pivotal moment where I thought, there is something real discernible going on here that is being covered up. And the cover-up is actually just as much of the story as to what this is all about.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Are you there, Brad? Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just adjusting a couple of things for Keith. All right. The photographs that we posted and this press release that we're working on right now with this strange thing off of the Malibu coast. I still don't know what to make of it. But I know that you've been commenting on it all week. Mm-hmm. And I told you today that we posted up another fresh set of 9 photographs. And so have you had a chance to review those yet? Did you look at those today?
Yes, I did.
Okay. First off, what's your general, where's your mind at with this right now?
Well, this has connected some real big dots for me, because since I started this in-depth research into the UFO enigma, I've come across many, many reports of a UFO base off the California coast, specifically the Southern California coast, where there is such a high incidence of sightings. And some of those sightings are craft actually coming out of the sea. So this really connected a big dot for me, because this looks like it's much, much bigger than what the Navy would have constructed for, say, an underwater submarine base. It's huge. It's massive, and it looks very ancient. As I told you when we spoke earlier today, it reminds me of like some megalithic structures I saw in Egypt with the giant pillars and the big flat capstone and an enormous cavity entranceway. It must be, a mile or two wide to get in there.
Yes. And again, well, I don't want to cut you off. So, but, you know, with all of the sightings, we've got a little noise coming from your phone, and now it stopped. All of the sightings that seem to be, you know, in the hundreds every single year up and down the California coast. It's been going on. Well, you know, this is the strange thing. It's not, you don't really hear too much about San Luis Obispo. You know, you don't hear too much about San Diego. It's this concentrated area right here along the Malibu coast from Santa Monica all the way up to the north side of, you know, Zuma Beach and the north side of Malibu and that entire area, which is about, I'm going to guess here, but that's probably a 30-mile drive, 25, 30-mile drive. It's not a small area. But, and the ironic thing is, all of the military installations that happen to be right behind this thing. And that is a curious connection. You asked me earlier today, you said, what do you think, Jimmy? You think it's us or them? Mm-hmm. And I said both. You know, in that it's, if it is something ancient, and it very well could be, and I agree with you with the pillars and the way that it looks, construction like that going unnoticed by the populace on the coast. But then again, it would all be done underwater. I don't know. And the other thing is that I thought about, I'm going off subject a little bit, but there are an awful lot of oil platforms that have come and gone on that section of the coast. So quite possibly one of those oil platforms could have been parked over there, and they could have used that for construction, and nobody would have known for the better what was going on underneath the surface of the water. That being said, the amount of USOs sightings in and out of the water, photographed and videoed over the years, would indicate that the structure is complete and under there, and possibly that's why we built the military installation so close to it, so we can access it inland. And that's why I said both today. You know, and that just, it makes a lot of sense to me in that regard. Bill Burns, you and I were talking about Bill, and Bill goes, Jimmy, what you need to do is get a boat with a side scan sonar and go out there and check it out. I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, yeah, I got a boat. I got a side scan. I got a bluefin, you know, sitting in the backyard. Yeah, I'll head straight out and do an expedition. He's used to doing stuff like that on the fly. But certainly I think that is going to be the next stage. Is we've got to get out there and, you know, it's protected waters because of the military installations, but we need to get to it as close as we can. I wish I had a scuba buddy. I would push him overboard.
Well, that was my next question. What's the depth?
Well, we're working on that now, and I'm not comfortable with releasing the data that we have now. The data that we have released on it, we've double-checked and triple-checked. I'm comfortable with that, which is this. The plateau structure itself is 1.35 miles tall by 2.45 miles wide. We are comfortable with that number. We're also comfortable with 6.6 miles off of the coast to the center of the platform. That's kind of a weird number, but that's the number that that the software is giving us, 6.66 miles. And then the support pillars in the front, the the biggest entrance part in the front is approximately 2,745 feet wide. In other words, about a half a mile wide, which
That's
makes
amazing.
Yeah, it is, and that makes sense. If it's 2.45 miles wide on the top of the plateau, then that entrance being a half mile wide does make sense. The thickness of the roof calculates out to approximately 500 feet, and the pillars themselves are somewhere between, the shortest pillar is 600 feet and the tallest is about 630 feet tall, which would make the width of the pillar about 100 feet in diameter.
Big enough to get a pretty large craft in there.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of submarines. I think USOs could egress and transgress that entrance with no problem. The size of some of the USOs that have been sighted around the world, and this is the thing, when you hear descriptions of different craft, like you remember the famous Japan Airlines sighting up in Alaska.
Yeah.
You know, how they describe that. Well, there you go. It could fit in and out of this, no problem. You know, and this is one other point. You know, why don't we see craft this big coming in and out of the water here? Well, you don't have to. You stay underwater, take off, head over the horizon, and go out 20 miles, 25 miles into the open ocean where nobody can see you, and then you exit there. You don't have to do it in front of, you know, your friends and neighbors. You know,
Right.
You do it clandestinely. You head over the horizon and pick a spot. And not only that, what if you just headed out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean in general? But that certainly seems to be an entrance to something.
Remember Bill Cooper, when he had his sighting in the Navy, he said it was as big as 2 aircraft carriers, the craft he saw. And it did come up out of the ocean, flew around a little bit, and then went back down in.
Now,
So we know that these craft can fly through the air or through the water.
Now, you've just struck, you've hit home for me. I love Bill Cooper. Love Bill Cooper, man. I love me my Bill Cooper. Listen to him all the time. And you know what I love about Bill? And I just listened to, last night, I went back and I wanted to listen to what he had to say about that. And he talks about it in a few different interviews and a couple of different speeches. He changed his belief in what he saw, and I'm going to address that in a second because it applies directly to what you just said and what the implications are of this entrance. But this is what I dig about Bill Cooper, is the intro to his show. You hear those dog barks in the background, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you hear the boots marching and the sirens going off, and you're just like, all right, here we go. We got some Bill Cooper. Love Bill Cooper. I contacted Doyle to come on the show, and we're still actually working on that. But I think Doyle has got a lot to say. You know, he worked with him for so many years, did all of his research and worked with him there. And I would just like for him to come on and talk about, you know, what he was like. I don't want to hear about, you know, the day that he died. That's been running the ground. I don't care. But Bill, back to his point, he said he was on I believe he was on a submarine, and he comes up in the conning tower, I believe. And anyway, so he's up there. He's got his binoculars, and boom, this thing takes off out of the water, and goes back in. And he, you know, same description as you said. It was huge. But he couldn't believe his eyes. And then he said later on that once he was exposed to all of the documents from the Navy about it being extraterrestrial and that we were communicating with ET, and there was this whole program going on, and he was, you know, exposed to all of these documents, that later he felt that he was shown that for disinformation, that he would go out and spread the word and talk about an ET thing, where he feels now, he's dead now, but that he later in life felt that what we were seeing was Earth-made. Could have had an ET influence, but he feels like it was a man-made craft that he had seen come out of the water, which would make sense back to this entrance on this base. he definitely feels that what he saw was real, but that it was, a top secret craft that was man-made.
Well, also when he did arrive back to port after that sighting, he was pulled out right away, and I think a few other officers had that sighting with him, and they were all debriefed and said, "What you saw, you didn't see."
Yeah, and his the one famous guy, I can't think of his name right now. Was it Olivero Gonzalez? A Spanish a Latino name. His buddy Geronimo. Was it Geronimo? I think it was Geronimo. I can't remember. But that buddy of his, he saw a couple of years later after the incident. He sees him at Pearl Harbor. And they go and have a couple of beers, and his buddy had broken his arm, and so he was off of the boat, and he's recovering with his broken arm. So they sit and they talk about this USO that they saw, and then he never spoke to him again, never saw him again. And I was listening to that story last night. I just wanted to go back and review what Bill had to say about this, because it has a lot to do, I think, with what this base is, and it's also its relation to Port Hueneme, which is right there, the Marine base, and of course China Lake, which is in the Mojave Desert, and then you have Area 51 right behind that, and then right above that you have Hawthorne. The naval undersea warfare base, which happens to be right in the middle of Nevada for some strange unknown reason. Have you heard reports about sightings of submarines at that little lake in Hawthorne?
I have indeed. I was going to bring that up. I remember reading in Nexus magazine years ago that a whistleblower had come out of there, and he was saying that he was at the facility in Hawthorne, and he couldn't believe his eyes that he was actually seeing submarines in water. And they told him that there was an underground to underwater passageway, and I'm pretty sure it said that the entrance was down near Carmel, California, which is a little closer up towards me in Northern California, but just before you get to Big Sur. And that was really interesting because that point at Carmel is one of the steepest drop-offs that there is on the Pacific coast, and it's a very renowned scuba diving location for that exact reason. And in fact, you can get a submarine to get very, very close to the town of Carmel because of that trench that drops right off of the continental shelf. So as I do recall that was the entrance base to Hawthorne, but who's to say that it's not a big spider web of different interconnecting channels, because one of the chapters in Future Esoteric is all about underground bases, and we can document that there's at least 130 of these underground bases all across North America. So it would also stand to reason that if they're already using these nuclear-powered boring machines, that they could cut out submarine holes.
Right.
And when we were talking earlier about this discovery at Malibu, ours or theirs, well, the entrance would seem it's theirs. But it would also seem that there is this cooperation going on, and they would allow our submarines to come and go out of there as well.
I wonder what it would cost, if anybody knows, what it would cost to maybe rent a little sub. Something that we could just go and launch off of a boat there and cruise down and check this out. I don't know if it's possible. I have no idea. But somebody just tweeted, use the Fade to Black submarine. But
where's Jacques Cousteau when we need him?
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be something. Somebody out there knows something. So just email us and let us know. Now, talking about underground bases, we all know and love our good friend Norio Hayakawa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Norio posted today. I meant to read this as the church rant at the front of the show. And I didn't get a chance. Oh, you saw what he posted today?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to read this if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Because it is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm still wondering where he's going with this. But everybody, yes, this was posted today from Noria Hayakawa. And actually, I'm looking now, this is only 2 hours old. It was just posted. And this is what Norio had to say. He says, folks, it's all over, finished. Yes, it was all true, and I was wrong. Yes, I now admit that there are aliens working with our government. There is hybridization program going on underground in Dulce, New Mexico. Yes, it is all true. We are doomed. One in 5 citizens are being abducted by aliens. We must do something about this, but it is now too late. Yes, the government is indeed spraying us every day with chemicals. It is all true. Yes, and making us weaker and dumber. Yes, this is no joke. They are poisoning us with fluoridization through our water systems. Yes, there are Chinese troops stationed near the Mexican border. It is true, I admit. The government will put some of us into FEMA concentration camps being readied all over the U.S. Yes, the internet was correct. And Linda Howe was right from the beginning. Aliens have been mutilating our cows. I must now admit. Yes, I must now admit that aliens did crash near Roswell in 1947 and the government covered it up. I now admit that the government has been covering up the presence of aliens at Area 51. Yes, the extensive network of cell towers have been built to control our minds. This is no joke. Yes, the government did it all. I must now admit that there are underground tunnel networks with maglev trains throughout the entire U.S. This is no joke. Yes, the reptilians are here. David Icke was right from the beginning. The New World Order will be established soon, and many of us will be enslaved. We are doomed. And I must admit now that I have been working for the government all of these years. So long, folks. Norio Hayakawa. And this is the nutty thing about this, Brad, and I want your comment. But he posted this about 3 hours after I sent him the information on Malibu. Yeah. Now, I don't know if they're connected. I'm in no way suggesting that, but I'm just wondering if they are connected. And the timing for Norio. Now, do you when you read this, and I just read it to you again now, but when you read this the first time today, did you think he was being facetious, or do you think Norio is, why? What did you think?
Well, if you know Norio's posts lately, he's been kind of knocking on everything. He's been basically dissing from Roswell to the abductions to even Dulce, which he is somewhat of an expert on.
Yes.
And I've just kind of been watching him, and I did notice that there was a posting like that recently, today or yesterday, and somebody even said, "Are you a disinformation agent, Norio?" And I hit like on that because I thought it's so strange. Why is this guy turning on everything?
Right.
And then you get this posting a couple hours ago that just reverses on that and says, yes, it's all true. So who knows? Maybe he does work for the government. I don't know. I found him to be a pretty authentic guy. I met him through, virtually met him through Anthony Sanchez, who I think is a very stand-up researcher, and I love his work.
Yep.
And he recommended Norio, and I think we've communicated a few times. But then when he took the turn just dissing everything, I was like, what happened, Norio? I didn't really even want to engage with him because he seemed pretty intent on doing this. So either he's having a moment of clarity and he realizes, hey, I'm just going to come out with it, screw my ties with whoever is paying me or whatnot, or maybe he's being facetious or sarcastic. We'll just have to see what his next posts are going to be.
Well, this is the thing with Norio, and you hit almost all of the nails on the head. And so let me backpedal and comment on what you just said. Number one, He's very well respected, and he was instrumental with Bob Lazar. He goes all the way back to Area 51. He did the first interview with Bob Lazar on Japanese television. His research goes back to when Art Bell was, just on his own radio station or whatever in Las Vegas talking whatever before UFOs. He goes back that far.
Yeah.
And he's well respected. And he's a very, very intelligent guy. And he's a musician. So he's got this very cool, calm, collected thing about him that allows all of us to, A, like him, and B, respect him in the same regard. Now, I had him on this show, and he was one of the first guests. And the reason why I had him on, well, I liked him, number one, but he was very close friends with some friends of mine that absolutely said, Jimmy, you want to kick this thing off right? You want to do this right? You get Norio Hayakawa on. That's who you get on this show. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, all right, you know what? I agree. So, we contact Norio, and he was like, absolutely, man, let's do this thing. So I get him on the show, and his stories are amazing, and I could talk to that guy all night. I really, really could all night long. But when we got to Dulce, he backpedaled. He backpedaled on the air. And I'm not speaking bad about Norio. What I mean is I've heard him speak and write about Dulce in one regard on television and on his writings, everything. But when it came down to the show, and I said, so what's there? And he goes, well, probably nothing. I'm like, what? Say what? And that was just a strange thing. And then, boom, this post comes today, and now he's flipping it over again. I don't know. I don't know. And you know him pretty well, too. It's kind of a shocking thing. This is like Stanton Friedman or some other researcher coming out and posting something like this. You have to take this seriously.
Yeah, and someone like Norio, who's been talking about this stuff for a long, long time, you got to think he's probably been talked to. And we spoke about Bill Cooper earlier. We know what happened to Bill. Look what happened to Phil Schneider.
Yep.
In even more dramatic fashion.
Yep.
So they have a way of putting the fear of God into people and shutting them up or making them turn around and start dissing these things. And I didn't know if that's what Norio was doing, but like you said, we were all pretty shocked when we saw his post today, reversing himself. And he's getting up there in age. And I think he does have a conscience about all this stuff. And maybe he just had a change of heart. I hope so.
Had an epiphany. Something happened. Now, if this is comedy and he's writing this tongue-in-cheek, well, then it's well done. But I would think that maybe 10 minutes after this post, he comes out and goes, just kidding, man. I'm just messing around. But if you take this literal, I mean, the last line in this is scary. He says, I must admit it now that I have been working for the government all these years. So long, folks. Wow.
Cryptic.
Whoa. Norio. I just want to pat him on the back and give him a hug, I just got a tweet that just came in, after reading this, and this one says, I think Norio is being sarcastic, but as a way to get the truth out. See? That's one way to look at it. And another one just says, I'm laughing, LMFAO, thanks for that. But check this out. Hawthorne Lake, it's called Walker Lake in Hawthorne, Nevada, is 17 miles long, 8 miles wide, and 140 feet deep. Huh.
Yeah, that's not very characteristic of lakes in the desert.
I didn't realize it was 17 miles long, 8 miles wide. That's like Loch Ness big. I didn't realize it was that big. What are you doing with your phone? Ouch.
Yeah,
okay, there you go. Okay.
In my Sacred Places North America book, I did a big part about Lake Lahoshan, which was a big inland sea during the last ice age, and it drained naturally. And Nevada is all the rivers that flow into it, except for the Colorado, which has an outlet, but all of the Great Basin, including Nevada and Utah, they're just like Dead Sea type scenarios where the water flows in and then it just evaporates. And all along the banks of the old Lake Lahoshan, which was in a massive inland sea during the last ice age, they found these mummified giants, some of them 7-8 feet tall, with red hair and red beards, and mummified in the same way that the Egyptians had mummified their dead. And I went out to Lovelock Cave when I was researching sacred places in North America. Of course, there's nothing there to see apart from this cave, but they had lived there, and it had been on the shore of this fresh inland sea where these massive red-haired giants lived and were eventually wiped out by the Paiute Native Americans in that area. In fact, there was a woman by the name of Winnemucca who had written a book about it, and the stories had been passed down generation to generation until she chronicled how they had killed these giants. And I'm a real tall guy too, so I kind of take notice of these.
Were you able to do what I would have liked to have done, which is go and verify some of these photographs that that are out there of the site and of what did you find when you were there? I mean, could you actually confirm?
Well, I did, because I went to 2 museums. One, there's just a tiny little museum in the town of Lovelock, and they have a couple duck decoys that were woven out of reeds, and they also had these sandals, these massive sandals, like size 18 sandals, which kind of suggests of giants. Of course, they don't have any of the bones. They've all been gone missing, and this is this topic we call Smithsonian Gate. Anytime a mound in the Midwest has been excavated and they find these giant bones, sometimes with double rows of teeth, it's like at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. They just go to some giant warehouse and just go missing, or there's even reports of them dumping the bones in the ocean just to get rid of them. And it's kind of like the whole topic of UFOs. If this information were to be brought out to the general public, and there was a disclosure by the government, the powers that be, just like this whole discovery of these giants, it would be a complete rewriting of history as we know it. And I don't think they think we're ready for it. So they just keep covering it up. But in the meantime, they've painted themselves into a corner, whereas we're catching up to them, and we're starting to realize that our ancient history on this planet is very involved, and it does include antediluvian civilization, and it does include some hominids that look like us but are very, very different. And I chronicle them in Modern Esoteric. There's the Star Child skull that was popularized by the late Lloyd Pye, and there's also these skulls down in Paracas, Peru, which clearly show elongated heads. And they're not wrapped. They're a different subspecies of humans. And the reason we know that is because if you examine the cracks in the skull, how every human has like this pattern of cracks where if we were hit with a blunt object, the skull could shift a little bit.
Instead of break, right.
Yeah, instead of break. Well, these Paracas skulls have a completely different skull line pattern, suggesting that they weren't wrapped, that they were, and they're much, much bigger than a human skull as well, suggesting that they were indeed a different subspecies, similar to this Star Child skull.
While we're on this subject, I've always tried to research this next question. I never have gotten the right answer. Is the brain the same shape as the skull? Is the brain elongated as well? What is the opening on the inside to hold the brain? What is, and I know you understand the question. Maybe you don't know the answer, but is the brain the shape of the skull?
Well, it is, because the skull is just what contains the brain. And in anthropology, they measure it using BBs, just like from a BB gun. And this is how they've were able to measure the older indigenous species such as Homo erectus and Australopithecus africanus, the Lucy structure. What they'll do is they'll fill the cranium with BBs, and however many it holds, that's called the cranial capacity. And surprisingly, Neanderthal has a larger cranial capacity than Homo sapiens do. But they had some disadvantages with their jaws, that they weren't quite as, they didn't have the ability to be as articulate with language as we do, and a few other things such as, their brows were much more pronounced, and their gait, they weren't quite as fast or mobile as humans were. So back to these Paracas skulls, I'm not quite sure what the cranial capacity was, but they are indeed much bigger, even to the magnitude of close to ×2. So they're much different than we are. That much we can tell.
And what about the Star Child skull with Lloyd Pye? And are you there? Whatever's going on with your head or with your handset, you need to stay still. Are you there? I think we've lost our connection. Wow, bizarre. All right, that means we are going to take a quick break. Yeah, it went completely dead. Completely dead. I'll be back right after this. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Stay with us, everybody. Keep it going on Twitter, YouTube, @JChurchRadio, YouTube, email, Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, we're back. Don't worry about a thing. Fade to Black, the Friday edition. KJCR on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are speaking with Brad Olsen. Brad is back. We reset the connection. Brad, are you there, brother?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. It sounds fine. It's just somebody, whenever you get into certain subject matter on this show, it's inevitable. Somebody's listening, I swear. It has nothing to do with Peruvian skulls. It has everything to do with Norio Hayakawa. I guarantee it.
We're cutting close to the bone tonight.
Yeah, I've often wondered with this Malibu thing, how far do you want to? I said this either last night or the night before, but you're poking a stick into the hornet's nest. You're going for it. And at one point, when you're a kid and you're goofing around like that, when you need to back off. And you also know when you've crossed the line. Well, you know what? You just got to go with it now. You can't back up.
Jimmy, this is a huge story, and you deserve some props on this. This is huge. And anybody who's listening and paying attention to the subjects you talk about knows this. And probably some of those people that keep messing with our connection know this too, because this could change a lot of things.
It could, and there are a lot of researchers out there, and Bill always comes to mind, Bill Burns, but Preston Dennett has been working on this for decades, man, decades, and I can't wait to give him a call and go, dude, okay, man. Here it goes, and I'm going to do that tomorrow. But I'm really looking forward to that. And then we'll have Preston on the show next week, no doubt. But I'm going to give him the chance to review everything. But you're absolutely right. That this is a game changer. And,
it is,
and I just can't wait. I just want the feedback from everybody. I just want all those researchers out there that have been following this for so long to finally take a look. And this is one weird thing, and you've been doing this for a while too. Looking back, think about this. Has there been any other reports of an entrance? We've had all the USO egress and degress out of the water. We've had all of that off of the coast, but to the best of your knowledge, has anybody else reported an entrance like this over the years?
Not to this scale. As I mentioned earlier, there is one that is thought to be near Carmel, California.
Right.
And I would also venture to say there's probably one near the California-Oregon border, which could access the massive underground chambers below Mount Shasta.
Right.
And what is the legendary city of Telos, which is a very, very old civilization, according to the narrative about Telos.
Have you been to? Have you gone and checked out Shasta yourself?
Oh, you bet. Climbed it in '97, that same year.
We had Jay Widener on a couple of months ago, and he's got a new film out called Shasta, which covers. It's a feature film. It's not a documentary. It's a feature film with real actors and a real screenplay and special effects. It's really cool. But he covers everything when it comes to Shasta. He's a very knowledgeable guy with that. And he really, when you walk through the tunnels there, do you feel the same things that he refers to in the energy and did you actually go into the chambers?
No, I didn't. We just climbed to the top of the mountain. But I returned in 2007 because there's a nonprofit organization that I'm a director for called World Peace Through Technology. The website is peacetour.org. And it was one of our anniversaries, and we like to do one-off events. So we chose Mount Shasta, and we went up there to do a party with some of our friends, an outdoor electronic music with DJs type of event. And we're at this meet and greet with some people that we were going to work on, and this little leprechaun kind of guy comes over with his laptop. He's like, I got to show you guys something. And he shows us these mounds. And they're not just, there are quite a few mounds in that area. Some are built by Ducks Unlimited for housing, to let ducks lay eggs, and they create little artificial islands for them.
Right.
But these mounds he showed us were so symmetrical and so exact looking. It just seemed so odd. So we had to go find them, and we did. In fact, I wrote an article your listeners can access. It's called Forbidden Archaeology, and I have images of these water mounds. I call them the Tennant water mounds because the nearest town is this little town called Tennant up there on the north eastern flank of Mount Shasta. You can see it in the distance, but it is about 20 miles away. So we went out there and we found them, and it is just the darndest thing. We saw that they had been filled with water recently because you could see like the little sediment layers. And we also traced the channel. We found where the water came from, and we followed it and followed it and followed it, and it just came out of like a little opening. And it was just the darndest thing. Like, what were they doing? Well, I have a friend up there who is actually hosts some of my websites, Randy Barris at PhotonNet, and he says he sees these lenticular clouds come and attach to to Mount Shasta all the time, and they behave so strangely. Say if the wind is mostly blowing off the coast in an easterly direction, sometimes these clouds will come in the opposite direction and just cloak the top of the mountain, no clouds anywhere else in the sky, and then just go back the same way they came. So his theory was, and this is as close as I could approximate, perhaps these are part of that. Perhaps these are natural type of cloud-making devices. And again, I invite your listeners to check out this article I wrote about it, and it's also in Sacred Places North America. I even have, they're so amazing, I have a color photo section in that book with some pictures of them in there. Because this was kind of like my moment of discovering the Malibu underground tunnel, because it just blew us all away. And we did a party there. We did a renegade party right there on the site. So
what about anything flying in the sky? You know, Jay was telling us if you go up to Shasta, and I've been. What's weird is I've been through there so many times. I got stranded up there in a snowstorm once too as well, but I never stopped to look around and observe. It's one of the most majestic places in America. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful. When you cross the lake there and you're looking at the mountain, it's about as beautiful as it gets. But I never stopped to look and observe. Have you ever seen anything in the sky? Anything flying?
Well, just what I said at the top of the show, just one time I did see phenomenon over Crater Lake, and then it occurred a few minutes later right into the flank of Mount Shasta.
You know,
so I think my answer would be yes, I did see phenomenon there.
And the Indians have been talking about it forever, like it's nothing. Yeah. You know, and it's just an everyday occurrence, and it's just what happens, and so what? You know, that's how common it is up there. I'm gonna quote. There's this quote from you, but it's from Future Esoteric. But it's a crazy sentence, and it says, everything from history, this is you, everything from history, science, government, baking, money, law, economics, farming, energy production, water treatment, health care, even spirituality is a lie. You know, is that a broad stroke of the pen, or is this something that really needs to be, you know, discussed like that in such an easy sentence?
Well, I think you pulled that from the introduction to Future Esoteric. Yeah, and then it's in the context of describing what is called the big lie. And this was actually articulated by Adolf Hitler himself back in the 1930s. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, you tell a whopper of a lie that's so big, that's seemingly so unbelievable that people will go along with it. And I think that's where we find ourselves right now in history. There are just so many of these things that have just gone awry. They're just so wrong. And everything needs to be questioned. That's why the subtitle to Future Esoteric is The Unseen Realms. Because when we start getting into it, there are these unseen forces, whether it's benevolent or malevolent ETs, at work behind the scenes, but also in the mechanizations of government. And I think now people are starting to wake up to the fact that it's not Obama, it's not Congress. They are merely the puppets, but it is a government that serves corporations, a corptocracy. And when we really get to the meat of the matter, we see it's the David Rockefellers who run this country. We see it's the big industrialists that get their way, the Monsantos of the world that just steamroll the laws, that make their own laws, that get the people appointed to the positions to protect their interests. Because our government serves the corporations, and it's been this way since 1871. It's just right now it's at a fevered pitch because so many things are coming to a head, so many things that are affecting the health of this planet, that are affecting us as human beings, and the whole natural order of things. And that's why I say the revolution is consciousness, because the only way we can defeat these dark forces is by waking up and everybody starting to understand the very severe situation that we find ourselves in. I mean, it's like we're walking along a razor right now, and we could so easily flip into World War III and catastrophe on the planet, or we could go the other way and start arresting these people and putting them on trial for the crimes that they've committed, and really start to wake up to the golden age, the great awakening of humanity. And what a privilege and honor it is to be an adult, a conscious adult in a Western country, to witness this and to actually be a part of it and to help people understand what this is all about, because this is it. This is the greatest show in the universe right now. And we are the ones who are responsible for doing the right thing to get the human race to wake up and see what's going on. So for my little part of it, I'm quite honored to do what I do, and I'm very happy doing it too.
Well, don't you think the fear that we put ourselves in living through the Cold War, and I mean, I'm talking about Russia, China, and the United States and everybody else on this planet, that fear that was there because we were at the brink of war for what seemed like, endless years, that I think we've kind of broken through that. Do you really think that that's still a possibility? I think that we're a little relieved that fear has been lifted. But do you think we could really be on the brink, on that razor's edge?
Well, I mean, look what happened a couple months ago when Obama got on national TV and said, well, we're going to bomb Syria. And then fortunately that didn't happen. But you could see that Russia and China and the BRICS nations were lining up behind Syria, saying, you bomb them, you got a serious issue on your hands. And the mercenaries in Ukraine. I mean, everybody in Europe knows that this is a Blackwater CIA type of operation.
Right.
But you watch our TV, and it's basically the Council on Foreign Relations drivel. That's what I call news in America. It's like the talking points that they get from the CFR and the Trilateral Commission.
Absolutely.
These are the think tanks that basically steer government. And I think it's misplaced to put our anger in the government. It's not the government. It's these other individuals who are pulling the strings to make government work in their favor.
This is what's disturbing to me. I'd like for you to comment on this. The governments of past generations, and we can go back thousands of years, when you had to build up your military, you did it because you had to, and you had to defend your country, and roaming clans and everything. This goes all the way up to the 1700s and 1600s, and different families and so forth. But now, today, the conscious that it takes, the morality, the lack of morality that takes to run a company that manufactures weapons, they make their money off of knowing we need to go to war because we need to blow up some of these weapons so we can build more. We need to launch some missiles so we could build more. We need to build more planes. We need to profit with our company. We need to take care of our shareholders, and I need more money. And the lack of morality for these, board members, they go to bed at night happy that we're going to war, and the bottom line, we're talking about Blackwater and whoever else, and that's what scares me today when you talk about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the wealthy families that run these companies, that they have no conscience and they don't think about that young men are dying out there. I have no problems with the military itself. My father retired in the U.S. Army. Love what goes on with that and the dedication of every man and woman that is in the military today and what it takes. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the flip side. They make money off the uniforms. They make money off the bullets. They make money off the food. They make money off the housing. Let's build some more boats and more submarines and money, money, money. And that's what's driving it today. Yeah. And it didn't drive it that way 100 or 200 years ago. And that's what's disturbing to me when you talk about the Rothschilds and and that 1% of the money out there, the 1/10 of 1%.
Right. And this has been a story that's been going on for at least a century, probably more like 2. But look at how much more terrifying it is with the weapons they have today. Back in World War I, they were just lobbing bombs at each other, and then they introduced biological weapons. That was 100 years ago. Think about how advanced it is now. And the final section in Future Esoteric is called the Utopia section, and I want to leave people with hope and some good news, and there is alternatives, the other side of that razor that we're walking on. One of the chapters is called Free Energy. Look, we could have been off of oil, coal, gas, nuclear 100 years ago with Nikola Tesla's world system. He was going to give it to us as a gift. And who struck him down but the industrialists themselves that did not want free energy introduced, because the nature of free energy is it's free, and they wanted to tax it. J.P. Morgan, who was financing Tesla on this project, his famous line was, well, where's the meter? How are we going to extract payment from people if they use it? And he said, well, there is no meter. And even though he did offer to try to do that for him, they saw the danger in Tesla's invention. I mean, he was a genius ahead of his time. So the very least we can do is just try to go back and replicate some of the things he was working on, like this world system. But I also have a lot of other examples in the free energy chapter in Future Esoteric about inventors who have come out with a very similar machine. This happens over and over and over again. It's kind of like how Darwin and Wallace both came upon the idea of evolution at the same time. It seems like when there's an idea and it's ripe, a lot of people pick up on it. And it's actually quite simple. It's basically getting 2 magnets going and then stopping them really quick. And that will release a burst of energy, more than the energy put in. So we're going to have to start thinking about re-examining some of the laws of physics, such as these laws of thermodynamics, because clearly these machines have some kind of workaround. And also in the Utopia section of Future Esoteric, I introduced the idea of a world without money. Because what you just said in your setup piece is this is what it's all about. It's all about money. And if we could think of a world without it, boy, how much pain and suffering that could alleviate around the world. But the people who have it all don't want to give it up, and they're going to fight tooth and nail till the very end to keep their power structure. But we're the many, and they're the few. And if we know how to unite, and we can come together and make the consciousness one of revolution, they don't stand a chance. We're going to see right through their game, and it's already happening. That's the beautiful thing, is people are seeing what they're up to, and they're getting so much exposure, more than they've ever wanted to. And what was it, the quote by Nelson Rockefeller, one of the brothers, he's like, we should have never allowed the internet to be open to everybody. It should have always been kept under wraps, under national security. Yeah, exactly, because now we're seeing what they're up to.
Right. And this is one of the fascinating things to me is solar power. And the reason why, it's an easy thing to say for anybody. Well, solar power. Well, look, Germany, which is covered in clouds. There's no sunlight in Germany. I live there. They produce more solar power there in a cloud-covered country, in that little country, than we do, 6 times more than we do in the United States.
With all the deserts and sun we get here.
I know,
exactly. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Now, so you have that aspect, and then you tie it in with this statement that I'm about to make. We built the federal highway system in 4 years. Interstates, connected, done, put everybody to work, got it done, rolled up the sleeves. And now the 405 freeway here in Southern California, or the 880 up there with you, has been worked on your entire life, and they're still not finished with it, right? You know what I mean? But if we If we had a president with the balls, I don't want to get into politics, but I'm talking about the human race here. If we had one guy to get in office and go, look, every highway in the United States is now going to be solar panels, right? Let's install solar. Let's drive our cars on solar panels. Let's figure this out. All that black asphalt out there, let's turn it into solar power. Every roof in the country, every rooftop gets solar power. We could eliminate everything, put everybody to work, make, everything, the economy would turn on, and we could get off of the nuclear power and no more Fukushima disaster stuff, and release ourselves off of all of this petrochemical and coal and it could happen easily, but nobody wants to do it. Why? There's no money to be made. That's it. And there's no, how do you, if we do all solar power, what are you saying? And that's what's frightening to me. It seems so easy to do. You could go tomorrow, Brad, you could run for president with that platform, and you would think you would get elected, but you wouldn't. Or you wouldn't get shot,
Yeah, I'd get elected and then day 2 get shot.
It's the truth. It seems so simple to me. I was talking about free energy to another guest a couple of months ago, or maybe about a month ago, and I've always had this weird dream, and this is the dream. I should patent it, but patent the dream, which is this: I'm a big watch guy. I love watches, mechanical watches, automatic watches. No batteries here in the house. There's no quartz-powered watches at the church house. Nothing but automatics. But there's something fascinating about an automatic watch in that it runs by itself, okay? Runs by itself. No batteries, no nothing. Don't have to wind it. It winds itself. Now, if you could take that idea, the second hand that is ticking on a watch, right? Pop, 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 right? You wind it up, and it runs. Well, if you took that times 1,000 and just built a big version of that.
Yeah.
Okay, a big version. And on the outside where the second hand is cranking, that is turning another gear mechanism that is powering and turning a generator. So you come home from work, or you wake up in the morning, you walk into your garage and wind it up, crank it, and then leave. Your house is now running on, forget about solar power, forget about free energy Tesla from the sky, forget about all that. It would just be something you wind up and then come home at night, wind it up again, make sure it's running, just like the watch on your wrist. And then you wouldn't have anything anywhere. You wouldn't depend on the sun. You wouldn't do anything. But the thing is, it's such a simple idea. But you don't make money on it. You would sell that one time. That's it. You'd sell it one time, and then everybody gets free electricity. And I just don't get it. I'll tell you what. Talking about the Malibu entrance is one thing, but talking about free energy. That's really pissing some people off if you think about it. That's a sure way to cause some trouble and get this phone disconnected.
Well, until they do, I could shed a little light on that. Do you know that any patent that goes into the U.S. Patent Office, if it's more than 80% efficiency, all the way up to 100%, it's rejected.
Yes.
They won't take it. Free energy inventors such as Tromley, Bearden, some of them have actually been killed. I mean, they'll come to you first and say, "Wow, that's great. How much you want for it?"
Right.
And a lot of people will sell it. And all the free energy patents and devices, they go to the Department of Energy at Los Alamos, and there's a big underground base there, and that's where all the best inventions go to die. But if you do refuse the buyout, you say, no, I'm going to take this to the patent. Well, you get stonewalled at the patent office. But then let's say you're completely altruistic and you say, no, I'm just going to give this away. I want everybody to have this. I don't care about the money. Then they'll come at you. They'll destroy your lab. They'll confiscate all your equipment. And they'll say that this is a problem with national security. And they'll say your invention could undermine the economy of the United States. and therefore we cannot allow it to be released, and we're confiscating all this stuff. So it's been very, very difficult for a lot of these inventors to come to market with their goods. And if they do, they're instantly called a quack. I mean, look what happened to Fleischmann and Pons, two guys who came out with the cold fusion experiments. They were completely discredited and thrown under the bus. Whereas a couple years ago, 60 Minutes did a segment on cold fusion. They said, yeah, it works.
Yeah,
it's free energy. Sure, it's great.
I couldn't believe how bad they were thrown under the bus.
Oh.
And all of their demonstrations and, insanity, quackery, lies, education, family. They brought everything into play on those guys.
Yeah.
And also, you're right, though, with the patent office, if you have a cover sheet, right, for your patent, it's drafted by your attorney, your patent attorney, and you're moving forward. And if it says anything about perpetual motion or free energy on the cover, they don't even open the book. They don't even review it. They don't accept anything like that, suggesting anything of the sort.
And this is how we know that the government is run by these highest members of the corporations. Look, energy is the number one industry on the planet. Pharmaceuticals is number two. The financial system isn't far behind. And if we're talking about a complete revision, as you brought up about the big lie, if all these things are false and we need to rethink them, then we're completely rethinking economies and even civilizations. So again, it's kind of like the justification for covering up UFOs or the evidence of antediluvian civilizations on this planet. The people that have access to this information, they don't want it out, and they will stop at nothing to make sure that it's withheld from the public. But to me, it's like the little Dutch boy putting his fingers in the dike. You're trying to plug the dike in so many ways, but pretty soon the whole thing's going to crack and crumble and just pour right over. And I think that's about the place we're at right now.
How did we get here? In 200 short years or whatever, 250 years now, with our founding fathers, they come to this country to get away from all of that and to run on the straight and narrow. And it just seemed like everything was kind of cool for 100 years. And the Industrial Revolution rolls around in 1900, and then just everything went haywire. I mean, how did we get here? I mean, how did we get to the point where we don't trust anybody? Everybody's lying to us. Because I say it every night on this show, Brad. Trust no one, man. Everybody's lying to you. And that's it. Go find out for yourself. Listen to shows like this. Listen to me. Believe what you want to believe. Go do your own research, but trust no one. Right. And how did we get here where we all, it seems like everybody, I know right now, Obama's sitting in the White House trusting no one. You know what I mean? And my teachers are trusting no one. My doctor trusts no one. My kids don't trust me. You know what I mean? How did we get to this point?
Well, I think certainly the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913 pretty much spelled the beginning of the end. And, they had a 100-year charter. Nobody even realized that behind closed doors that charter was extended. It should have expired last year. We had a choice, but did you see it in any news programs?
Nope.
Did you see Congress voting on it in a public forum?
Nope.
Nope. Not at all.
Nope.
And they keep going on and on. So this is a giant Ponzi scheme, is the best way to describe it. Fiat currency is totally artificial. It's based on nothing except for the belief that it represents something.
But that's okay. No, that part of it's okay if you keep it in check. I have no problem having confidence in the money that I'm paid for, for the work that I've done, and I'm trusting in the value of this and the country and the man to the right of me and the woman to the left in our family. I know that part of it's okay. A lot of life is based on faith. I get that part. But when you find out and you start to unravel that the more money that's printed, that it's a privatized situation. It's not the government paying itself back for that money. It's private individuals making money off of our government by printing more money and getting interest on it. That part of it disturbs me. And if you think it disturbs me greatly, but also, am I wrong? And please, somebody correct me. But didn't Clinton hand off a balanced budget to Bush? Not to get political, this show doesn't go there, but at some point, not too long ago, weren't we like even? Wasn't everything okay?
What he did was he did balance the budget for the year, but all the debt that had accumulated up till then was still there, and that has just ballooned to gargantuan proportions to the point where it could never be paid back, and it was never meant to be paid back. It's a way of keeping us all in perpetual slavery. I posted a little meme from Facebook.
I saw it.
CNN just announced that the planet is 40 trillion in debt. It says, to who? Jupiter?
I saw that today and I died. Oh, man. That was just so classic and so well to the point, too. Who do we owe it to? Jupiter. But, and that kind of says it all. But again, it could have been 1913. I also, it's possible that it could, literally be going back thousands of years, and who the ebb and flow of the powers that be on Earth at any given time just continued to be there, no matter what you call it today, and it goes by so many different names and stuff, but it could just be the plan. And this, and debt was probably always there, and the cost of war and the profiting from war was always there, and the struggle for gold and controlling the masses was always there. It's possible. It is. It's just possible. I don't know how else to look at it, but these problems seem to come and go with every single politician of every country. Once somebody leaves, look, we thought that, when the Iron Curtain finally fell, that, everything was going to be okay. And it's not any better today than it was, it seems to me, than 1963. I don't know.
Yeah, well, here's a little tidbit. Muslims don't believe in interest or usury.
Isn't that great?
Isn't that great? And maybe that's one of the reasons they're so demonized. They won't go along with this whole scheme that the Western world has perpetuated on everybody else.
Right. Well, the big mighty petrodollar, too, as well, didn't help things in the way that was resolved in 1972. And, as soon as Saddam Hussein or, look at Gaddafi, those guys, they just wanted to, hey, you know what? We're not going to buy oil with dollars anymore. We're going to buy it with gold. And then you find Gaddafi under a road somewhere getting chased down like it's crazy. But now, and the reason why I bring that up, and I want to talk about the influences of benevolent or malevolent, either forces from offside of this earth that are possibly manipulating all of this for good and bad. And I know that you talk about this a lot, and I've had a lot of guests on that. And the reason why I set all of it up, was because, are we just pawns in chess? Is it possible? And I know that you write about this and talk about this. Is that really what's going on? Do we have nothing to worry about? Is it going to be okay in the end?
Well, we are pawns, for sure. Here's a great quote from our buddy Bill Cooper, and it's on a track, psychedelic trance track from a band called Eat Static. It came out in the early 1990s, and I remember listening to it over and over again, and it's from Bill Cooper at the UFO conference. I think it was in '89 in Vegas, when his famous quote was, "You put the aliens in the middle of this stuff and you get all the answers." Well, he also said this. He said, "It has been known and it is known now that aliens have been manipulating humans through secret societies, witchcraft, the occult, and religion. And that took me a long time to wrap my head around that all of these institutions that have been around forever, since the beginning of recorded history, have been manipulated. And if they are these malevolent ETs, and the way I like to describe it is how Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot puts it out. She's like, it doesn't really matter how big their eyes are, or what color their skin is, or how tall they are, or how many fingers they have. The only thing that matters when you're trying to define what ET is are they service to self, or are they service to others? And those ETs that Bill Cooper spoke of, that have been manipulating humans through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion, are most certainly these malevolent service-to-self ETs. And therefore, they are the top of the pyramid. They are the ones calling the shots. And the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds of the world are merely captains and majors. And these guys are the generals. And it's not even the Greys. The Greys are just really servants. They're just created and programmed to obey and do the bidding of these Draco reptilian ETs. And this is very much a David Icke-inspired subject matter, but I think he nailed it on the head. And this is really what it's going to come down to. And this is where the human race is going to have to do a lot of soul searching and realize that we have been incredibly manipulated by these entities, and they actually hate us. They think of us very contemptuously. In fact, they look at us in the same way that we look at livestock, that we're just cattle to them, and they even eat us. A lot of really weird stuff is going to come out. If this does come out to the surface, it is going to blow people away. But we got to start somewhere, and fade to black with this one.
Yeah, right. Well, I was talking to Daryl Anka, Bashar, a couple of weeks ago, and he said one thing though on this very subject. He said, you know what? No matter what, they won't allow us to self-destruct. That won't happen. But they will let us, go right up to the edge to learn a lesson. And we need to, grow up and mature. We're just a little baby right now. We're growing and maturing every single day. And as the years go by, we're learning more and maturing as a race. But they won't allow us to pull the trigger and go into World War III. That won't happen. And so that's his good message, as much as it's kind of frightening as well. But he said that Bashar and his race, and I'd love to hear your comment on this, that they are beyond war. They are about having fun. Every day is just having fun and learning and recreation, and that's what life is like on their planet. And that's what we're working towards here. Have you heard any type of message like that? Do you feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely. I agree with everything you just said. Now, of course, we're talking about the benevolent service to others. And this is going to be the message that we're going to get from them, is that we need to be positive in everything we do, from our thoughts to our actions, to our words, to our deeds. Gandhi even had a quote along those lines, like to be very careful about what you think, because your thinks become your actions, become your deeds, become your legacy, so on. And this is basically what it is. And by the way, none of these ET societies have money anymore. They've gotten rid of it a long time ago, and they actually think it's quite strange that we cling to this. And I'm often asked this question, why don't they just land on the White House lawn and be done with it? Well, think about it from their perspective. Like you just said, we're kind of the planet of the apes to them. We're just these little infants compared to the kind of technology and civilization that they come from. And do they want to be our babysitter? If they just show up and say, oh, we're here now, we're going to save the day, and we're going to take care of all your problems. Think of it from like a karmic point of view. they would then be inviting themselves to have to solve all of our problems. So I think what you just mentioned was quite accurate, that they will not allow us to pull the trigger. And a lot of the UFO research around military bases have been UFOs deactivating nuclear bombs to demonstrate that we're not going to allow you to launch these. In the silos of North Dakota, or even when we're testing nuclear bombs off of the coast in Vandenberg, there's a famous video of a U-2 UFO coming up and zapping it with laser beams and then deactivating, and it just falls into the sea. So they're making a very clear message to us that that won't happen, and I'm very grateful for that. But we're going to have to take control and responsibility for ourselves. And we can't sit back and say, oh, when they arrive, they're going to show us all the errors to our ways and everything's going to be fine. Well, maybe they're going to do it in a more subtle way and just help us learn what we've done wrong and then try to steer us on this correct path. And then when that does happen, I think we will have the Great Awakening. And if that were to occur on a consciousness level among all humans, perhaps at that point we can have meaningful contact and then be welcomed back into this cosmic family.
Do you think that's putting too much hope into being saved? You know what I mean? Should we wait around for somebody to help us, or
no?
Exactly.
We shouldn't wait around. We should be proactive.
Exactly.
And start making these changes ourselves.
What do you think Reagan, meant then, on this very subject? It's a famous speech, and I think that his words at the United Nations were deliberate. I don't think they were off the cuff. I don't think they were improvised. And I think he Reagan was one guy that was in control of his faculties. He knew what he was saying when he spoke those words. So, do you think that that he was suggesting something that, I don't know how to say this and sound like a crackpot, but do you think he was actually suggesting that we'd have to go to war with ET? That's what I heard, and I think that's what a lot of people thought that they heard. What do you think he said when he said that?
Well, clearly one of the most famous quotes of a public figure of all time on the subject, and in case your listeners aren't familiar with it, he basically said to the UN General Assembly that if we are confronted with an alien attack scenario, wouldn't we all come together as United Nations to defend ourselves? And you could read into this so many different ways, but I think you're absolutely right that he was a very calculating politician. He knew exactly what he was saying. And my read into all this is that, of course, Ron was getting briefed, and he probably got briefed on some of the darker side of things, such as what's going on below Dulce, New Mexico, or the human abduction phenomenon. And he probably saw it in very black and white terms, like, okay, maybe there are these good ones, but they're kind of doing this hands-off thing. But we know that there are these more malevolent service to self. So my thinking is he was referring to them, being briefed on what they've been up to for the last 50 years, and was probably spooked. And some say he was like the last duly elected president, that he was the last person who wasn't, a puppet in this other regime. There's the Bushes and the Clintons were very allied to him, and I think we're seeing the same thing with Obama now. But that Ronald Reagan was very much his own man, and he would take things into consideration. And, I mean, look what he did with the Cold War. A lot of people credit Bush Sr. with the Berlin Wall coming down because that was under his watch, but it would not have happened without Ronald Reagan.
Oh, absolutely.
So he is a great president. He's up there with Kennedy as far as my opinion, are the two best presidents of the 20th century.
Yeah, it's kind of, again, politics is such a touchy subject for everybody, but I'll say this. When I was in high school, and in that period from, like 1980, 1979, 1980, 81, 82, right? That through that period, that was a great time to be an American, and it just, you felt like you were being led. Everybody was happy. It seemed like there was money, and everybody had a full-time job with benefits, and your parents had it going on. You know what I mean? And
I called it the golden age of traveling planet Earth. We could go to virtually any country we wanted. That's not the case today anymore.
No. And that was and not to say that, I don't love my life now, but I do feel things are just a little bit different. And one of the things, I had my cousin mentioned this, said this comment to me about 3 months ago after listening to the show one day, and it was profound. And I said that I repeated it on the show a couple of times, and I'm going to lay it out there for you now. It's exactly what we're talking about. Is this: do we really want to know if we're alone? And the problem with that is this: if the government gets their way and convinces us and then tells us, by the way, we haven't been lying, there are no UFOs, there is no ET, there's no life in the universe, no Roswell, nothing has ever happened, and that is the truth. And that, my cousin said to me, would be worse than, he said, that would cause anarchy in the streets. That would cause this planet to lose control. To find out that, man, we are alone. There's no reason for us to live. There's no reason for us to move forward. We have nothing to prove to anybody. There's nothing to live for. Because if we did find out that we weren't alone, and we were visited by ET, then the question is answered. And it's, now we have a reason to live. We have a reason to perfect ourselves. We have a reason to visit the stars. Let's go visit our friends. Let's be planet Earth. Let's don't be fighting each other. Let's make friends with the universe. And it was such a profound statement for him to say to me, and I had to stop and scratch my head. Like, our government probably does have it completely bass-ackwards. And if we looked at it in those terms, and you know what? And it caused me to back up and think. And what do you think about that? It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
It's a great concept to think about, and it really is the position that the government is taking, and even established science, like the new Neil deGrasse Cosmos series, based on Carl Sagan's Cosmos TV series. They don't make any allusion that we have been visited. I mean, this is the standard approach to who we are in this universe. We're just alone on this rock. Now, there's probably a pretty good probability, and we're starting to spot Earth-like planets out there, but who can be sure? So it's this whole doubt that's put into the mix that just keeps even the best intellectual off the trail, so to speak.
Well, and just like when I was talking about Morgan Spurlock earlier, it's not the belief in ET now. That's not the crazy person. It's the person that doesn't believe in ET. That is a crackpot, because there's just no way. Now that we know what we know, I'm so glad that Hubble made those. We got back those first shots of from Hubble with all of the one galaxy upon another just stacked up, like bumper cars, and so when you look at the universe in that aspect and how large it is, then there's just no way. Not only are we not alone, but there's got to be billions, if not trillions, of civilizations out there. And so with the age of the universe and the age of the Earth, we're 4.5 billion years old here on this planet. To think that if somebody out there was just a simple little blip on the radar, a little 10,000 years older than us, 10,000 years, which is nothing in the age of the universe, then if we're out there looking in one direction, Brad, if we're looking that way, then they're looking back at us. It's that simple. That's it. There's no other way to look at it. They know we're here, and they've known for a long time. And I posted many, many, many years ago that I don't know if we're visited every single day. I don't know. Nobody knows that. But have we been visited once? Absolutely 100% factually, fact true. And you can't prove me otherwise. So now, have we been visited 100 times? Well, yeah, probably. 1,000,000 times? Yeah, it could be. I don't doubt that. But have we been visited once? And do they know that we're here? Yes. And you can't tell me no. There's just no way.
Right. And so if we just go from that one confirmation, you're talking about a complete rewriting of who we are on this planet, in the cosmos. And look at what's going to suffer the most. Organized religion has a vested interest in keeping people, do I want to say ignorant?
Yeah,
they want to keep them, within the faith.
Right.
And this would blow the lid off of that. Then we would see that we're among these greater intelligences, and then what is God? Maybe they're God. Maybe they're our Lord that we've been talking about. And these stories go way, way back, and this is basically how modern esoteric starts, with all these legends and lore, and say, for example, the biblical flood with Noah, these earth changes that now science is finally catching up and say, oh yeah, sure enough, the poles do shift every 100,000 years or so, and indeed there are great floods, and we can see the evidence of that in the geological record. So that's what's really fascinating to me, kind of along the lines of Graham Hancock and Fingerprint of the Gods, is that we see that a lot of these old stories, the Sumerian texts, the Egyptian Book of the Dead and so forth, are laying out some of this legacy that has been passed down to us. Now, some of it has been lost in translation, some of it has been burned in the Library of Alexandria, but the little tidbits that have percolated up through to this modern age does paint a picture that is vastly more complex than we're being given credit for or being taught in our schools. And I think that right there is a major crime, and it needs to cease. So just that 100% confirmation that you just said, Jimmy, that changes everything. But we're not there yet, or at least we're there, but our government that leads us and is led by these very wealthy individuals don't want to let this information out.
Do you think that's why the Vatican is like changed its tune in the last few years and has been slowly leaking an attitude change out to the masses?
Yeah, right. Like when they made that release that, we could baptize ETs. Like they would want that. Like we'd be doing some great service to ET by baptizing them in the Vatican Church. And boy, talk about skeletons in their closet. When that whole thing explodes, and it is on the verge of exploding, I really do think this is the last pope, along those prophecies of Malachi, who lived like 600-700 years ago, and chronicled all the popes, and this is the last pope. You know, they're just right now concluding a trial in Brussels, Belgium, which is implicating the Vatican in some very dark subjects. And if this all makes it to the mainstream media, you're going to see Catholics fleeing from the church in droves. And all of a sudden, it's going to be irrelevant. You know, when I was traveling around the world in the early 1990s, I was amazed. I'd go through Australia. Nobody goes to church there anymore. Same thing with Northern Europe. Some countries like Poland and Italy and France still go to church, but Germany, Holland, Scandinavia, England, no. You go to all those cathedrals, they're just like museums now. You even go there on a Sunday, and there's hardly anybody there. So there is a chapter in Modern Esoteric called Losing My Religion, kind of title taken from the REM song. And it goes into some macro changes in our belief system. In one generation, Jimmy, we are talking about a complete revision of spirituality and a new form of religion in one generation. These institutions have been around for thousands of years, some of them. Catholic Church, 2,000 years old about. And they're about to go through the major revision where they're not going to be relevant anymore, because we are coming into information that's going to give us a brand new perspective on who we are as human beings, and even more importantly, what our capabilities and powers are as an individual. This is a chapter I called Superhuman Abilities in Future Esoteric in the Utopia section, and also tap into some of these concepts in Modern Esoteric too, through all the long history of traditions on this planet, such as Buddhists becoming enlightened, other masters mastering levitation, telepathy, astral traveling. This is the curriculum that we should be being schooled around the world right now, but instead we're just getting this rehashed drivel. So when you said earlier about the big lie, all these subjects that are going to be revised, yeah, absolutely. Many of them are just half-truths or partial truths. We need the full story. And this is what a chapter in Future Esoteric is called, The Age of Transparency. If they're not going to give it to us, we're just going to see right through them. And
right.
That's what I see is happening right now in the world.
The
People
internet
are just starting to get it.
Yes, the internet is bringing all that down now, and it's one of the best vehicles that we have as a race. Earthlings, is to be able to go out and research and find out the truth. You don't have to believe what you've been told. Go and find out what somebody else is saying. And to that end, what do you think the Vatican could be hiding? What is so crazy that's in those vaults that A, that we don't already know, and B, why keep it a secret? I don't understand. I mean, whether it's goes back to the very foundations of religion, or if it deals with what's out there in space, I don't know. But what could possibly be there that isn't safe to let us know about? I don't understand.
Well, first I want to say that there are a lot of Catholics who do really amazing work, and they do want to help humanity, bring people up from poverty. This is not an attack on people's Catholic faith. I just want to make that really clear. But when it all comes down to it, the Vatican, much like all the institutions on earth, are a very rigid hierarchy. And you have a very rigid upper class of that hierarchy, called the cap of the pyramid. And this is how so many of our institutions have become corrupted, because it only takes a couple sociopaths who, by the way, the typical profile of a sociopath is extremely intelligent, but they don't have compassion or empathy, and that's how they are able to just claw their way to the top, no matter the recourse. And this has happened in virtually all the major institutions. And the Vatican is the prime example. And you have one person who is the Pope. Well, I just mentioned these trials that are going on in Belgium right now. And this is very serious, and this is very dark topics that they're discussing in some of these courts. And it's about child trafficking. It's about child molestation, which we've seen quite a bit of that come out. But it's also child sacrifice. And this ties in to the Draco ET. And I mentioned earlier that they actually have a taste for humans, and they view us like cattle. I propose in the conclusion of Future Esoteric that all of the stories of the devil living down underground in some hot hell environment with their little minions of demons, which are kind of like the Greys, I make this comparison, but all these years, the devil has been Draco E.T. And they are fourth dimensional, they are telepathic, and they're extremely good at manipulating humans. Now just think for a moment. If we were in some kind of dark mass, and for you and I, for the first time, we're like, go along with this, and we're kind of working our way up the ladder, and we know the Pope is going to be there, and we go into this secret room below the Vatican, and they start doing some chants or rituals, and then all of a sudden, an apparition appears. And it is as real to you as it is to me. We're seeing it with our own eyes, and it compels us to work for it. That is what it's been doing to humanity. And this is how we've been very gullible, but also very manipulated to do their bidding. And they are the generals. They're the ones that have been ruling the show. Now, it's my understanding that the benevolent ETs are taking them out of the equation, that they're not judging them, they're not putting them on trial, they're not killing them, but they're extracting these Dracos from planet Earth and just removing them, putting them maybe even in another galaxy, just getting them out of here. Because what they want to see, the benevolent ETs want to see, is if we are not being manipulated by this Archon energy, how are we going to react? Because one of the things that Draco has said is, oh, these humans are so self-destructive. They'll just kill themselves anyways. They don't need us. We haven't been the big players in all this. Well, I would say that they have been. And I say if we are free of their manipulation and influence, that we will work our way towards the Great Awakening, and we will take ourselves to a higher place. And this is all happening behind the scenes, and this also ties in to what is going on with the Vatican trials, because they're going to see that these child sacrifice rituals, just in the same way that the Aztecs did it, and all the bloodletting rituals you've seen throughout history, were sacrifices to these entities who have a taste for human flesh. And I know this may sound totally ridiculous to some people, but this is certainly a page right out of David Icke's playbook. And I happen to think he's spot on with this.
Well, I'm a firm believer that we are not born bad. Okay, we're not born bad. We don't,
no.
We're not a year old and suddenly, 2 years old, we have visions of, bad things. At our very core, we want to be happy. What makes us happy? We want to laugh. We want to see funny things. We want to hang out and that's our core. Our core is that. You don't see evil animals, if you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? We're influenced by something else that makes us think bad things. That's it. That makes us do bad things. And if you remove that, if you figure it out and you can remove that, yes, then we grow up. I absolutely agree with you. 100%. There's no question about it. Now, hey, listen, you want to, can you hang out for another 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, absolutely, Jim.
Okay, listen, because I've ignored a bunch of email and Twitter stuff, so some of this is going to make us backpedal, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all.
Okay, so this question is here. This is from Dino. He says in picture number 9, so he's referring to picture number 9 in the gallery. Okay, so pull that up. He says in picture number 9 are other features on the left side which do not look natural. Maybe they are underwater hangars, for the lack of a better term. And he's got a question mark there. So let's take a look at picture number 9, which is the last one. I'm opening it up on the left side. Oh, I didn't notice that. Open up number 9 there, Brad. Are you there? Are you okay?
I'm popping it open right now.
Okay. Yes, yep. I see what he's talking about. See behind the plateau on the left side? That's an interesting observation. It doesn't look natural either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that either. Wow, that's a good eye there, Dino. That's what I'm talking about. See, we have smart people on this show, Brad. I'm so humbled all the time. I just feel so dumb, And here, it's right there. Yes, absolutely. And I know that Dale is listening now, and so is Maxwell. So you guys go to work on that, and let's check out what is directly behind. When you're looking at these, when you're looking at this picture, Brad, at number 9, look how crazily man-made or not natural that roof is.
That's right.
All the way up. Look at just
perfectly flat.
It just doesn't make any sense. Look at the tracks. Do you see these tracks and the high-resolution stuff? Look at 5 o'clock. Right there, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
See the weird track grading marks that are there? And that is not some parallel pixelated anomaly that shows up in photographs. That, to me, man, that just doesn't look right. And it just doesn't make sense. And that's underwater.
This is huge.
Yes.
This is so amazing.
Yep.
And it, from my background studying megalithic artifacts around the world and my 3 books in the Sacred Places series, the first thing that struck me, and when I look at this image 9, that this is just a big lintel capstone over an enormous megalithic underwater structure.
Absolutely.
And as your listener pointed out, with the gully behind it, it even makes it look more placed in that location.
Absolutely.
Like it was chosen to be there.
I mean, I'm looking at this now, and I thought I was speechless before on these pictures, but he's absolutely right. Okay, so now we're running out of time. Let me get to these other questions. Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. There was a question here about a mountain. Let me see here. Hold on for a second. Where did it go? Is it this one? Yes. Did Brad go up to the Seaseti Ranch? And what are his thoughts on Gilliland?
I know Gilliland. He's one of my Facebook friends. I've heard him spoken of in very high terms. I have not been to the Seaseti Ranch. I'm waiting for an invitation. I would love to go. I think he's the real deal. I think he really does call craft down to this location, and I'd love to meet him face to face. I do some research on the Skinwalker Ranch in Future Esoteric, excuse me, in the cryptozoology chapter, because so many strange beings manifest there. And this also goes way back to Native American legend about this particular location. And it appears there's some kind of wormhole or stargate or something interdimensional there, where it could be in the middle of the daytime and like a hole will open up in the sky and you can see the stars. And then these entities such as Bigfoot and others will come out of that hole, as well as craft and so forth. That this Skinwalker Ranch is one of those anomalies, but kind of leaning towards the dark side, where I think Gilliland's ranch would be making contact with the service to other ETs.
Do you remember Art and his famous picture number 9 with Hoagland? You remember? And suddenly somebody just tweeted, now you've got picture number 9 too. What synchronicity, man. That's kind of a weird, that's kind of bizarre. Okay, let me see here. There was, what is Brad's theory? Okay, give me the short version. What's your theory on 9/11?
Oh, clearly an inside job. No question about it. We've been sold down the river to these forces who want to keep us in a perpetual fear state, to fight wars for Israel that really America had no reason to invade Iraq or Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden didn't have anything to do with it. He even said so in a video confession the next day. The one that he was supposedly confessing to has been shown to be a fake. Mossad was in on it. CIA was in on it. And this, again, is going to blow the top off of things. But people are waking up to this. I mean, clearly, science is in favor of this being an inside job, because kerosene, which is basically jet fuel, does not melt steel. It doesn't. And I was just watching with my jaw dropping when they had the 9/11 memorial on the news yesterday and Obama giving the speech, and they're showing these beams all twisted. I'm like, did anybody occur to you that it takes about 1,000 degrees more heat than kerosene burning, jet fuel burning, to melt those girders? So this is one of those things that is going to come out eventually, hopefully sooner than later.
Do you think,
and
with
these criminals are still out there. So my fear is they're going to try to pull another false flag like this.
Do you think that the 3,000 deaths or whatever the amount was that part was an accident, that maybe they just thought they were going to drive some planes in there and they didn't expect the buildings to fall?
Oh, no. They were totally...
The powers that be didn't care.
No, they don't care. No, it was kind of they look at it as a sacrifice. That's how they think in these terms. This was like a black ritual sacrifice to them. Of course, it's a crime against humanity to most of us. And these people are still at large, you have to understand. It's still their world. They need to be rounded up and put on trial. We need to have a new 9/11 inquiry and get to the bottom of this. But look, they pulled it off with JFK, and they feel empowered to keep throwing these little false flag maneuvers at us. But the people are waking up. And the thing is, the more they do it, the more we wake up. It's having kind of a converse effect, that the more they try to spring these little false flags on us, and they're kind of smaller in scale, with like the Boston bombing and the Newtown shooting. That was the Sandy hoax. Total fraud.
Right.
I'm now in the category that there were no children that even died at Sandy Hook. That was just, it just went live. It was training, but they went live with it, and they went on the news with it. And look, each one of these has a specific goal in mind. And the goal of Sandy Hook was gun control. And sure enough, right after it happened, all you heard was, oh, we got to take the guns away.
Right.
And Boston bombing was all about trying out martial law on the people. And this has to end. We don't need war anymore. We all thought when Y2K was coming around, geez, this is it. We're reaching it. Humanity is going to have the golden age sooner than later. And then, of course, 9/11 happened, 2001, and we are where we are. But people are waking up to this, and their false flags don't work as well as they used to.
There's a weird thing when it comes to martial law or the military being inside of the country, and I mean it like this: when the earthquake hit here in Los Angeles, I don't know if it was the same way for you up in San Francisco, but when the earthquake hit here, and it was big, yours was big too, but when it hit here, the one thing that happened, and it seemed like it was the day after, maybe 2 days after the earthquake, I remember being on Ventura Boulevard, which was completely, leveled, and I saw some National Guard troops on the corner, full on, machine guns, the whole thing, and I was happy. I had this feeling deep down inside, like, okay, organization, okay, it's not going to get out of control. There was no, looting or anything, but it could have been out of control. But what I mean by that is, it felt okay, And if the government only knew that that really generally is the attitude here, that you don't need to have martial law, you don't need to have a police state. We are comfortable in our own skin just knowing that everything is going to be okay. We aren't going to panic. You don't need to do that to us. We're not going to, lose control of ourselves in a desperate situation and run amok. We didn't do that. And I felt pretty good about that. There was no martial law. We just felt okay. There was other things that we needed to worry about. And I don't know if it was the same way up in San Francisco, but I think that's the general feeling across this great country of ours, is that we won't do that. And we certainly wouldn't tolerate it if it did happen. And that's why the Second Amendment is there, and that's not going to get taken away. And that's how I feel. I really do. I felt that sense of ease just knowing that we were okay. And I think everybody here felt the exact same way. And I'm not trying to be all melodramatic and kumbaya, but I'm just saying that that's human nature, and that's certainly the American way.
Yeah.
So, okay, really quick. I think, let me go through this. Let's see. Okay, Jimmy, great show. Brad was great. Okay, so I'm just reading your accolades here. Fabulous show. There you go. So those have all come in. I had a great time tonight, and I knew it was going to go this way. We've got to get you back on and finish up. We only touched on like 1% of everything that we talked. We
really did.
Yeah, it was funny because today we were talking like, oh, it's going to be great. So we're going to talk about this. It's going to be, you know what? We didn't go anywhere. We had lots of fun, and it was awesome. It was great. But there's so much more to talk about. Now, are you doing any speaking, or do you have anything going on right now?
Well, one thing I do that's kind of odd is I produce a large street fair event, which we just did 2 weeks ago. It's called the How Weird Street Fair here in San Francisco. And so my time has been very occupied with that and still wrapping it up. But now I've started to get back into interviews, and when I'm invited to speak, I will. I did a book launch party and presentation up at IONS in Petaluma, the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I got to speak in the auditorium, and we're going to get that video on Esoteric series YouTube channel. But your listeners can go to the Esoteric series YouTube channel and see my presentation for Future Esoteric, which came out first because it was the more developed book, but actually it's number 2 in the series. But they're both out now, and they're both great in their own way. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Future Esoteric takes on more of the ET question, where Modern Esoteric's more of our journey here on planet Earth. And we really just scraped the surface of both of them. So I'd be delighted to be on anytime you want to have me back.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last tweet of the night, or one of them, just came in 10 seconds ago. Another great show. Thank you, Brad Olsen. And that came in from Dale. He's one of the guys that helped us break this story on Malibu. And,
well, I say thank you, Dale, for breaking this story, because this could change everything. I'm not sure if I'm even aware, or everybody else is aware, how huge of finding this is, because now it's very tangible. Now we have a GPS coordinate. Now we know what it looks like. Now we know how huge it is. Now we know that it's a massive cavity. Let's go check it out.
Watch in a couple of days, it'll all be blacked out on Google. Watch. I mean, you just watch, man. That's the next. So anyway, for everybody, just go to Brad's website. The links are on his name. Where we always keep it, so you can click on Brad. Also, Brad, you're in the guest list forever, and your links will always be there. But you can go over and check out. Oh, thank you for sending me the books, by the way.
Sure.
Absolutely fabulous reading, and the wife says so too. But so Future Esoteric and Modern Esoteric are there, and go check it out. Amazing reading. And like I said, you're a breath of fresh air when it comes to all of this, and thank you for coming on. And anytime, you just let us know, okay?
Sounds great, Jimmy. I should also just point out on CCC Publishing, You can view 100% of the content of all my books, as well as other authors that I've published. I make that available. I just want this information to get out there, and I really appreciate you having me on tonight. You know, you and I can tell we're soul brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. Come in right back at you, Brad. And so you have a good, the next time the weird street fair goes on, you got to let me know so we can come up for that. That'd be awesome.
345 days, but I'll definitely let you know.
Right,
it was a big hit. 20,000 people, 13 stages, totally packed. I put a smile on the face of 20,000 people.
Is it total weirdness?
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, total weirdness, huh? That's what I'm talking about. Thanks, Brad. You have a great weekend.
You too, Jimmy. Thanks again for having me on.
You got it. Thank you, man.
Take care, buddy.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. All right, and that was exactly why you come onto this show. You know, it's kind of funny. I say it at the end of every single interview. Every single time, say the same thing. That's why you are here. So, look, I'm going to take a quick break, come back, wrap up. And, again, thank you, everybody, for coming in tonight. I'm just take a quick break, come back, a couple more emails, and I'm going to go enjoy my weekend just like you. And, yes, coming up, Big Picture Science with Seth Shostak. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us, everybody. Don't touch that mouse. Fade to black.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will. On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, thank you. Thank you, Brad Olsen. Wow, that was a great show. That was fun. I sit here with Brad all night. I mean all night. Norio Hayakawa. Oh, man. I've got to, I'm going to post Norio's statement that he had posted up on Facebook. But that was pretty dramatic stuff from Norio. And, for that to come in, I don't know. I don't know what it means, man. I really don't know what it means. But after tonight's show, I'm going to pack up, head to Hollywood, and I'm going to go check out Dan Fogler and Freeman and everybody down in Hollywood. I'm going to go check that out, take some pictures. Hang out on the tour bus. I'm sure it's not what it used to be like in the old days, in the 80s and 70s on a tour bus, but, it's probably wheat germ oil and fruit juice. But, going to go check it out and hang out with the guys. And that was a lot of fun last night with Dan. And the trailer is now up. It's been up all day. I don't know if we got it up in time last night, but the trailer is up for Don Peyote. So if you go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, it's right there. You see Anne Hathaway's mug. She's right there looking at you. So just scroll down. It's above Church Rant, but off to the right. That is the trailer to Don Peyote. So I'm going to go do that tonight. And again, I am in no way going to apologize for Dan Fogler's language last night. I thought it was endearing. I thought it was cool. Why? Because that was just somebody speaking their mind and not being influenced by the man. Just straight stuff coming out. And, okay, I want to remind everybody next week, got a couple of things going on. Number one, Jim Mars will be in here on Wednesday. And then Thursday is Steve Allen. Steve Allen is the pilot that broke the Stevensville Lights story out of Stevensville, Texas. So I've wanted him on the show for a long time, and so he will be next Thursday. Squeezing in there, I'm going to bring in Preston Dennett to talk about the Malibu entrance. And so over the next week, I'm going to set up a couple of other researchers to come in and specifically talk about. Jim Mars is going to address this too as well next week. This is big news. And, you know, with Brad today and Brad commenting all week about this and everybody else, this is potentially one of the biggest stories. I'm just so excited. The hair just stands up on the back of my neck every time I consider this. And Dale had said to me earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday, but we were talking on the phone, and he goes, dude, I fell out of my chair, literally, when we discovered, and he's absolutely right. That's where it is for everybody. So I'm pretty excited about that. So we're going to deal with that most of the week next week. Next Friday, yes, I have announced Michael Tellinger coming on the show. He is in South Africa. He is on location. He lives there, but he's also doing some research, which means he is probably, you know. So anyway, we're trying to get it set up. He wants to be on the show. We want him on the show. We've just got to get it set up properly. Okay? So that's it. I am going to rock this and get out of here and go and head down to Hollywood. I want to thank everybody for coming in tonight and participating. Email, Twitter, all of that is just absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Stay tuned. Coming up next, Big Picture Science with Seth Shostak. And it is Shostak. It's not Shostak. It's Shostak. Followed by After Dark with Brian Alvarez. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kumarian. Show's produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. The announcers are Steve Harder and Mark D. Kovar. Music is by Doug Aldrich. No longer in Whitesnake, by the way. The show's intro was performed by Space Boy. Thank you, Space. Good stuff. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Have a great weekend, everybody. See ya.